Imagine out of the myriad of possible jobs out there that any one you picked would give you at least $12 an hour. Think of the numerous possibilities that you could do with all this extra money. Would you meticulously and laboriously use your time to budget this and save all this magnified income? Or would you hastily spend this newly found money? Increasing the federal wage may boost the nation's economy in the short term because of all these increased spending. However, it quickly fades. This is relevant to all of us because even if we're not making what the minimum wage is and we're making more, it still impacts the price of pretty much everything throughout the nation, and it also affects your employer. I have done research and gathered different accredited sources to back up the information that I will be presenting to you today. The federal minimum wage should not be increased because increasing it would hurt small businesses and negatively impacts the whole economy. Next, I'm going to be discussing the problem of increasing the federal minimum wage. The federal minimum wage should not be increased because the efforts to increase this is detrimental. Raising the federal minimum wage impacts all of society, and the negative impacts of this can't be ignored. This leads to hurtful effects of the economy and workers' health. This will boost the economy in the short term because 27 million people are estimated to be impacted by the increase of minimum wage. And these increased earnings would increase how much these families would spend. Long term, however, this will decrease and have negative impacts. In 2025, 1.3 million workers that right now would have a job in any given week would no longer be employed. According to effects of increasing the minimum wage, page 10. If the minimum wage is increased by 10%, proportionately, 3.74% of people would say that they have lower or poorer mental health. A survey of 639,777 men found these results, according to Horn et al., published in Economic Inquiry. The minimum wage also protects the employer's and employees' well-being and is updated continually. It has been designed to create a minimum standard of living that benefits the employees according to the minimum wage, published by Legal Information Institute. In 28 states plus DC, it has been updated since 2014, according to Minimum Wage Tracker by Economic Policy Institute. The minimum wage is an important problem because of economic imbalance. A 10% increase of minimum wage can lead to a 4.6 to even a 9% decrease in teenage employment. Also, a 10% increase in any state's minimum wage will lead to a 1% decrease in both small business reduction and retail businesses employment. According to Savia, in minimum wage hurts small businesses. This affects all of my audience because the total income for a family is increased right now. And by 2025, if the minimum wage is in effect, then it will decrease for family in total by around $9 billion. According to effects of the minimum wage, page 10. An increase of minimum wage to $15 would also leave 1.3 million people jobless in any given week that would currently have a job. This will lead to decreased spending and also decreased product generation and decreased capita per person, according to effects of the minimum wage, page 11. I've just talked about the problem with minimum wage. Next, I will discuss the solution. Maintaining the status quo is the best solution to problems with minimum wage. It will allow us to avoid the negative impacts. Also, maintaining the current federal minimum wage allows states to maintain their own individual balance and raise their minimum wages as needed. If you're thinking that minimum wage might help impoverish poor families, then that is actually incorrect. Raising the minimum wage has been proven to not be an effective tool in lowering the amount of impoverished families. In 1996, when the minimum wage was risen, 74.8% of the people impacted were not impoverished families. Now, this has slightly declined over the years, but only by about 1.8% in 14 years, according to Berghauser and Sabia, published in the Contemporary Economic Policy. Also, the increase in 30 different states and DC's minimum wage since 2014 has been effective at maintaining employees' health and their benefits, according to the Minimum Wage Tracker by Economic Policy Institute. The status quo of keeping the federal minimum wage at $7.25 is important because it doesn't take up any extra time, any extra effort, and no extra cost to avoid numerous problems that could arise. According to Crane et al., the number of small businesses that have been closed per year is 600,000 in the past 5 years, and this has likely increased last year because of the pandemic. So, by increasing the federal wage, the loss of income would be $14 billion for these small businesses in 2025, and this would lead to devastating results for all of these small businesses, according to Effects of Minimum Wage, page 11. Next, I have just talked about the solution. Next, I will discuss my main points again. The federal wage should not be raised because raising the federal minimum wage would hurt small businesses and lead to detrimental economic effects in the long term. I believe that not increasing the minimum wage is important. Increasing the minimum wage sounds appealing, but in its application, it has many problems that nullify and become more prevalent than the benefits it provides.